It took me actually more than 15 years before I was able to speak about it. I was completely, like bursting into tears and not being able to do anything. Sometimes I won the race, but I'm not happy with my performance. I always felt something was missing when I was winning the Enduro World Series title and the World Cup title. I've been working for 2 years now to reach this goal of the rainbow jersey. I think it's something everyone can actually apply, and for me it was a big key.
Isabeau Courdurier, welcome to the Downtime Podcast. How's things with you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm just back from a short holiday, so feeling refreshed and ready for it.
Excellent, good stuff. Well, we'll start from the start. First off, just tell us a little bit about growing up, because I think you were a pretty active child and into a lot of different things, right?
Yeah, I was super active and I could not actually stay calm and quiet. So sport was a real key for me to kind of express myself and, like having this extra energy to put somewhere. So that's where I really started doing a lot of outside activities until my big brother actually started riding a mountain bike. And it seems like such a good activity that I was so keen to try. And I was 5 years old. I entered my first race and this was it.
Amazing. Do you remember much about that first race at the age of 5? That's pretty young to start.
I remember it all, like from the start to the end of the race. And it was actually quite a special feeling because I felt like, like a very big fire to do this race. I was like looking around, trying, like to pass the other girls. It was a cross-country one. And it was kind of a magic moment for me. And as soon as I was crossing the finish line, I was telling my parents, I wish we can do more in the future. I'd like to sign up to the local club next year. And this is what I want to do for fun. So, yeah.
Amazing, committed straight away. And am I right in saying you were a bit too young at that point to join the club? So your mum had to get herself a bike and sign up with you to look after you?
Yeah, it was a big family story because my big brother was already in the club and I was a bit too young. I was 1 year too young to actually join. So they said, okay, she can come, but one of the parents has to come with her in case she's not able to follow the group and you can take her back home. So my mom actually started riding mountain bike at the same point as me and we were going every week, 2 times a week to the local club and she never had to brought me back, but she got so keen that even when I left this local club, she kept on going for a few years. It was a real family thing, but always as a cool one, like they never pushed me to actually race, to get better or whatsoever. It was just a safe environment where we were all just having fun all together.
That's the perfect way to get started, isn't it? That's amazing. And it was the cross-country side of things that you kind of lent towards in the early days. I guess there was more of that kind of racing going on locally maybe than downhill, and enduro probably didn't quite exist in much depth at that point. Tell us a little bit about your time with cross-country racing, because you spent a good few years doing it and I think got to a pretty serious level with it.
So basically my dream was to race downhill, but where I lived it was a bit tricky to do so. So it was either you raced cross-country or you raced downhill, and it pretty much depends on where you live and the structure you had. So I chose to race cross-country, but I was like completely into it and very happy with that. Just I found it was super hard and tricky at one point when I was growing up, going to high school and trying to fit in your training schedule. And that's when things started to get harder for me, but I guess for every other young person at this point. And that's when I discovered Enduro. So that's the moment where I was kind of, okay, maybe I'm done with cross-country, with all of the struggles and, schedule difficulties. And that's where Enduro was kind of the fun technical thing I've always looked to and wanted to do.
Amazing. I think there was some, alongside the sort of scheduling troubles of that age, there were some other issues that plagued you in your kind of earlier years. I think when you were around 14, someone close to you suffered some kind of severe depression following an accident, and that had quite a big impact on you, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really some complicated times, let's say. So I really struggled and I felt like quite alone, and it was a lot of pressure, to do well at school, to do well on the bike, and I think I kind of lost myself in between. It was not anymore going out for fun and to get better and truly enjoy the process, but it was kind of some suffering in the middle of it. And it was also a period where in cross country to perform, you had this idea of you needing to be super tiny, super skinny. And it was quite something at this time, I guess, like a real pressure on, not especially women, but to everyone that was racing cross country. And I knew at that time I was not like so fit, but when I say this, I'm being very careful because I was not like completely out of shape or whatsoever. I was actually super strong and super fit, but just not looking the way people expected cross-country rider at the top level to be. So, and I was not even at the top level. That's where it's weird. Like you really put pressure on yourself and you're not even racing, like World Cups or whatsoever. I was only at a national level. And that's when I started to like completely messed everything, and I had some bad eating disorder I could not control. It was kind of a way to escape for me, and it took me actually more than 15 years before I was able to speak about it and tell my mom. Like she was not even aware. I was doing everything at night and like really hiding myself in a complete shame. And it took me so many years to just say, you know what, maybe this was wrong. And I felt like, like part of you is trying to push things away and not to look at it. But at the same time, I think when I reached the point where I was like able to say, you know what, no, this was wrong. Like you should not have to go through it. And you had some difficulties you could not fix on yourself. It really helped me into my adult life. So that's why I'm trying to, like be open about it, speak about it, and help when I can.
Yeah. And I think, was it your coach at the time that sort of spotted that something was wrong? Obviously you were continuing trying to train and race and then having issues with like, I guess, the energy and everything that comes with the eating disorder side of things. And it was him that spotted something wasn't quite right.
Yeah, so basically he could also see I was, like going up and down with my weight, like I'm a very small person, so you can easily spot a 2-3 kilo difference on me, and he could see like I was up and down, up and down. Sometimes on training days I was completely, like bursting into tears and not being able to do anything. So he really actually saw something was wrong, because normally I'm a super chill, super cool, always smiling person. And at that time I was not. So he kind of spotted it, but not, like get right into me and say, oh, Isa, what's wrong? Like, let's talk about it. So it was really like subtle, and he actually just helped me, like when I was bursting into tears, to kind of control it and like switch into push those pedals super hard as you can, and transform this anger, this shame. Like I was quite desperate at that time. Like, so transform all of this into energy and actually like pushing those pedals hard and, like really letting the sport do its job of catharsis. And it actually worked pretty well for me, and I was able from this point to really like put everything on the bike and leave it all there. And that's when I actually start to improve, not especially on the eating disorder side, but in my life in general. I was able to be much more there for my family and start to, be more open again, and everything kind of fell into places. And I think it actually took me 5-6 years before I was almost, relieved from this period of my life. But I think it's also played a huge role into, shaping the person I am today. I'm not sure I'll be as resilient and as strong as I can be sometimes if I did not went through this period of my life. So I think everything happens for a reason, and the reason for me today is just to try to speak about it and help people.
Yeah, I read an amazing quote that I think the coach said to you in an interview. It said, "You can continue to convince yourself that everything is fine, or you can use what is wrong and make it your strength," which is such a powerful way to look at things, not just for what you were dealing with then, but I guess throughout your racing career, but throughout your life, right? Being able to try and transform negative energy into something you can use positively is such a powerful concept.
Yeah, sometimes we are laughing about it with my boyfriend because he actually says, Isa push those pedals. And when he's saying this, it's truly like because something is not as right for me. And my therapy is to go out and, just like really give as much energy as I can. And I think throughout life, mountain biking was here for me and kind of always was things that was always there. So when everything is going like through some difficulties and I faced a lot even after this period of my life, mountain biking was always here. And I think it's the same with people. Like we all have an activity or sport we can go back to when things goes wrong. And for me, mountain biking has always been this place.
Yeah, it's very similar feeling for me. Tell us a little bit about the move from cross country to enduro and what you remember of it, because I think that was a big part in helping you find a healthier and happier headspace as well, right?
Yeah, so I was actually struggling a bit with mixing school and cross country at that time, and I had a very good friend, Morgan, Such, who is also a rider from where I live, that we were racing cross country together when we were 7 years old. So that's a funny story. And I was 17 at this point. And she told me, yes, there is a super cool enduro race in Val d'Alos. You should come and race it. And for people who know the event, it's the Tribe 10,000, which is not a small event. It's actually, at that time, it was complete madness. Like we were going up and down for 2 days non-stop, racing blind. And that was my first enduro race, but it was complete love at first sight. I was so keen to do this. I had so much fun, no pressure, and it was finally putting a lot more importance on the technical aspect, which was always my strength in cross country. I was not passing riders up, I was always passing them down. So it was like suiting me so much more, and it was fun, and everyone was out there having a good time. And I remember I went to this race with my parents, and on the way back, again the same way I did for my first race, I was telling them, wow, enduro is so much more fun for me at this point. I think this is what I'd like to do more in the future. And my friend Morgan's father actually had the shop back then, and he was able to help me for the next season with a bike, and I was going to the races with them. So they really helped me make the transition to enduro. And from this point, this was it, and I was fully committed to it.
Amazing. And the following year, that kind of conveniently, the EWS began in Punta Ala, and you were there, I think, on the start line for the first ever round of the Enduro World Series. Can you remember much from that event? Like, what was it like being there at that world stage event, I guess, with all the big names that I guess you'd been looking up to?
So I did a year before that of Super Enduro and French Cups, because this was the only events you could do back then. And then we all heard that there will be this incredible series, the Enduro World Series, that was going to happen the next season. And I knew the first one was in Italy, so I was super keen to go there because obviously I could afford this one. And really, I did not realize back then how important it will be on the first one. I think it came after. But I remember I had some very hard panic training like 2 months before it, because it was a 63K race, like the longest ride I would have ever done. So there was a lot of panic training prior to that. And throughout the weekend, I felt like a kid at Disneyland, all of these legends around me. And I did some transition with people that I met that are friends now, and it was kind of a magic one. And I remember really, really suffering, and it was tough, but I loved the challenge it represented. So I tried to do a bit more rounds of the Enduro World Series this year, and I was at the end of the season really convinced I wanted to do more. So that's when I tried to find a team to secure me for the next season to do all the rounds.
Yeah, and you got to overlap and race alongside, I think, one of your heroes at the time, Anne-Caroline Chasson, who's an absolute legend of the sport. What was it like getting the chance to race and ride with Anne-Caro? And were there certain things that you personally took away from the way she approaches racing?
So at first I was really super shy, because when I was 7 years old, I would go to the Rock d'Azur with my jersey, you know, like wanting her to sign it, and always, you know, kind of look up to her as an hero. So it kind of took me a bit of time before I was, you know, like really okay speaking with her. And I think Anne-Caro is truly a person that remains calm through everything, and she truly has a plan with everything she approached. And I felt it was super inspiring to see how much details she would focus on when it comes to racing. And some of the advice she gave to me back then, I'm still using it today in my pro career. But other than that, I love the fact that she was always remaining, you know, like calm. Like she could have so much pressure to when it was tight with Tracy Mosley or any other rider, but she always remained like completely focused in what she was doing, not letting anything impacted the way she is. But when it was time, you know, like to really go for it, she would just like really switch it on and be full gas into the stage. So it was truly an honor for me to be able to race with Anne-Caro, and now every time I'm seeing her, I'm always like so happy. I started racing Enduro young enough to race with her, and I felt like this is what is special with Enduro. There is such a strong community feeling behind it, and I always speak about it, but I don't think people can realize how important it is. And imagine a legend like Anne-Caro at this point, like her career was pretty much done, you know, like she was racing Enduro not for fun, because Anne-Caro is never racing for fun, but she had done already so much. But still she came to me like the 18 years old girl, and, you know, kind of took me with her and taught me as much as she could. So I think that's what special is about her.
Definitely. Yeah, there is that spirit of enduro, I think, in both the men's and the women's field, and it still exists today. You still see people helping each other out, supporting each other. Even though you're racing against each other, it does seem like a very, friendly discipline, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's even more right in the women field, especially when we started, because we always felt like, we needed to fight to be there and to exist. And the Enduro World Series really supported the women field back then. And within this small community, because at that time we were not so many, we really were super bonded together to make the sport better, to increase the visibility, to make more women come to race. And I think today, when you look at the women field, we've really been through a lot of improvements. And I guess it's even truer to say that the spirit is strong in the women field in Enduro.
Yeah, awesome to hear. And I often look at people's results over their careers in preparation for these interviews. And yours feel like, if I plotted them on a graph from 2013 to 2019, they'd be one of the sort of straightest line graphs out of anyone. There's been a real sort of consistent and improvement over the years, with very little dips or kind of crazy results, and very little races that you haven't finished or been injured for. Do you, and that's working all the way up to being very, very dominant. Like 2019, you won, I think, all 8 rounds of the EWS. You won the Trophy of Nations as well. Can you talk us through a little bit your personal approach to how you improved over the years? Because it's rare, I think, to see people just gradually getting that bit better every year without any dips and troughs where there's been injuries or accidents or things that have caused them problems.
So I think for me, the focus has always been to be consistent. And I think that's why it helped me to have results that were pretty much always the same. And it took me years actually to, get better and better. And that's also for a reason. It's because I'm never riding outside of my comfort zone. I'm always pretty much riding at 80% max, and it was at a point really a struggle, and I worked a lot with a mental coach to actually be able to unlock the last part of it. And I think that's why it kind of took me years to build up to be able to ride outside of my comfort zone to actually get better. But also that's also explaining why I've not had so many crazy injuries or not a lot of time where I was missing some races or whatsoever. I actually only missed 2 runs of the Enduro World Series, one because I had a broken elbow and one I did not finish. It's the only one I did not finish because I was sick. So throughout my career, it's quite a good statistics, I guess. And I first started Enduro on an international level because I was able to speak English. And not a lot of people know this story, but I signed my first team with Rocky Mountain, Urge BP Rally Team back then, because I was able to speak English and they were looking at someone that could race, but also do some race recaps and do some stuff on social media and kind of help them on site, but also race. And that's where I started. So I had no pressure actually on results because the biggest part of my job was to make sure I was able to cover the race and get as many information as I could. So I think it really helped me to kind of set the tone for the rest of my career, and I never put any pressure on results on my shoulders, like for 5 years when I started. Because I was also finishing my school degree. I was studying for a master back at that time. So I guess it really helped me to perform just, without the pressure of the result. And for me, that's key. And I think it really helped me to, have this, healthy progression throughout the years. And pressure kind of came in my life when I was a pro rider, and obviously this is it, finally this is your job to go out and try your best at the racing. And I still had to manage it for it to be too big and taking such a big part. And I guess for me the most important thing is not to look at the result, because what is going to help you get a better rider for me are the steps. And I think it's super important to have this in mind when you want to progress. I always see some young kids or people that want to get better telling me, yeah, I'd like to do this. And I always tell them, yeah, but do this? What do you have to do? And if you look at it step after step, it truly helps to have a healthy progression and not, to also give up or not stay consistent. And for me, that was a key into being consistent throughout the years until reaching the point where I was, a very good rider.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about the difference between performance and results, because I think in the position you were in, you could almost have the other side of the problem in that you've been so successful for a period of time that the motivation to keep going and keep training hard and keep working hard over the winter, when you've won everything, you've had a perfect season and won every race, it could be hard to find that motivation. But I think you look at performance rather than results, and you define those two quite differently, I think. Is that right?
Yes, for me, it's two very different things. And to get a picture of it, sometimes I won the race, but I'm not happy with my performance. And that's where the two things are truly different. And for me, performance is almost like a state. We speak about the state of flow, so many athletes speak about that. And for me, it'll be more like something like racing. In a way, I control everything I do, but still I'm having fun of my bike. It's smooth, it's fast, but it's not, looking I'm gonna fall on every single corner. So it's really a state and a way of riding. And I guess you can never actually reach this point. So you always have to get better and better. And today, I can still see and name 100 things I'd like to do better on my bike and to improve. So that's where it's really two different things, because obviously if you only look at the results, this year I reached the dream results for me. But it doesn't mean I reached my dream performance. And I think that's where it's super exciting with mountain biking. You're never done. Like you can ride and train your entire life. You will never be done. And I think that's why, like truly kept the fire alive from me throughout the year.
Amazing. And like this ability to look at those things in such clear ways, is that something that you've developed personally? Have you worked alongside a mental coach? Like how have you got to this point of being able to define and think about the space that you're working in so clearly?
So part of me always knew I was not racing for the results. I'm not racing to only win. I've always raced because I love the challenge to get better. And that's something I figured out quite young. I realized like the result in the end, yeah, for sure I was happy if I was doing great. But some days I was doing a terrible result, but still being super happy with my performance. So I think I realized this quite young. But I worked with a mental coach since 2018 because I got kind of stuck in my head when I was constantly being second behind Cecile. And I knew, for me, the main goal was not to, to beat her and to get number one. But I felt it kind of stuck me in my progression because as soon as I was starting to race, for me, I was like, the best you could do is second and that's it. So it's kind of refrained me to also get better on my bike and, continue to try to work hard, to get a bit faster and fix some details. So I started working with him back then to unlock this situation and again start progressing. And it truly helped me because that's when we implement the why are you going out to train on every single day. And I think it's something everyone can actually apply. And for me, it was a big key is to know why I do what I do. And sometimes when you have a training plan, it's really easy to just follow it and, go to the gym because you have to go to the gym or go to do some intervals because it's written there, you have to do them. But if you start questioning why, what will it do, it does, what it will change, how it will actually help me to perform on the racing day, I think it really improved for me the motivation and keeping it throughout the years.
And was your why the same from like 2018 to 2024? Has it always been the same why or has it changed at all over that time?
I think it's a super tough question to actually know why you are doing it or why you are racing. And sometimes the answer can depend from one race to another or from 1 year to another one. But I think it's important to truly have at least one main idea of why you're doing it. And for me, it kind of took me some time to realize it's simply because I love it. I mean, it sounds very stupid. But at one point when, every single day you're trying to perform, you're trying to change the details that will help improve your performance, sometimes you kind of get lost and you really need to step back to go out on a ride and say, oh, I'm only loving riding a bike, that's it. And that's that's actually what helps me to always kind of think, don't let the job part be too much on the passion one, because the passion is the actually thing that is going to drive you to being good at your job. And I think it's very easy to have some difficulties to find the balance in between both, but I think every single time I kind of got lost in between both, had too much pressure, I always step back and remember mountain biking is your passion. It will always be. This is your job right now. It might not always be. So you need to kind of protect this passion when things are getting a bit hard, and passion will always be here for you when you are really into the struggle bus. And that's what mountain biking taught me. Like when I had some, because even if I was consistent, I, like anyone else, had some very difficult times. And when passion is there, it will always be the fire that will help you to get back and get resilient every single time.
Was there anything you did specifically to reconnect with that passion? Is there a trail near home that you'll go and ride and that you know you're going to enjoy? Or is there a way that you somehow remind yourself of that why and the love for it?
For me, it's pretty much into the effort. So I had some really difficult times, especially 2021 when I lost my father. And the key moment for me to turn this was when I went out and I pushed as hard as I could until complete exhaustion. And I found this kind of moment is a moment that reconnects me to my passion for riding a bike. So if I'm ever in doubt, I go out and I push those pedals super hard until I'm completely done and exhausted. And I always found this was it. I know it's weird to have passion for suffering on a bike, but for me that was what was working.
Have you talked much to the other athletes that you've been racing with over the years about their why and the way they connect? Like, is there much similarity, do you find? Is there a lot of people doing it for the same reasons and channeling that in the same way, or is everyone a bit different?
I think there is a lot of differences, and that's what is cool as well. And I think we are all different when it comes to the why we are racing. But in general, I would say that everyone has a true passion for mountain biking, because there will be some times where it's super hard. I know it's a dream to ride a bike for a living, and we are super lucky. But it also means that sometimes we are going to get injured, we are going to face some difficulties that are not on Instagram, are not into this shiny life. And I guess that's when passion is truly going to be helpful, and so that's probably what is similar in between all of the riders.
Yeah, fair. And in your career, you've been across a few interesting teams. So you started off at Rocky Mountain with I think, like you say, Urge BP squad at that point in time. Then in 2016, you moved to Sun, which, I mean, especially if you're French, but if you're into mountain biking, such an iconic brand. That must have been a really exciting time for you.
Yeah, it was a time where they were trying to put Sun back to where it was, so it was a super interesting challenge, and I really like when I can work closely with a brand to implement some change, and that was the case with Sun. They were super keen to put Sun back into the racing scene in mountain biking, and I was racing with Thomas Lapéry and Kilian Brand, which are the two of them are really close friends now. And for me, it was a perfect stage to get closer to being a pro mountain bike rider, and that was a perfect way to actually start, and I was super happy about that. And after that, we actually built our own team with Cedric, my boyfriend, and Kilian Brand, and that was super interesting as well to be on the logistic side of it as well.
And that was the Intense Mavic collective, wasn't it, at the time? Was that also sort of part of your school learnings? Because I think you did sort of a management and marketing entrepreneurship qualification. Did that help you in pulling together that team and dealing with sponsors and getting everything you needed?
Yeah, it was truly helpful, but for us, creating our own team was also because we wanted a program that was a bit different of all of the racing team back then. So we wanted to have a team that was both really implicated on the media side with Kilian, obviously, and on the racing one with me. So we wanted a team that had two personalities, let's say, and at that time it was pretty much you were either racing or doing some media stuff, and that was the idea behind it. And it worked super well for 2 years, and we were super happy about that. And again, it's like everything I learned throughout those 2 years helped me when we joined the next team, which is Lapierre, with I'm still with them now, and to really bring everything we learned on the media side and apply it to a racing team.
Yeah, and it was on that Intense squad that you had your clean sweep season in 2019. Does that make it even more special that it was on a team that you were a big part of building?
Yeah, it was really cool because everything we were doing it on our own. So Cedric was my manager, my mechanic, he was doing everything. I was very onto the logistic side as well. And you know, when it's something you've created, you've put all of your energy into it, when you get a success, it's really again different, because like everything is kind of not your creation, because obviously you work with the sponsors and all of the partners around it. But when you are behind it, it's even more special. And I think for me, the best part of it was truly to do this season as if it was just a family thing. You know, like I was traveling most of the time only with Cedric or Kilian Uljon on a few races. And it was just like the 2 or the 3 of us around the world, having fun on each venue. And when it was time to race, it was time to race. We were fully focused and devoted to it. And it's one of my best seasons, actually, with like such a good result, but also such a good experience in life.
Perfect. Sounds like you got that one got pretty well set up. Was it an obvious move then to move on to Lapierre Zip Collective in 2020? Was that offer kind of too good to turn down? Again, it's a huge French brand and a lot of firepower behind that team.
So obviously at this point we were looking to the next step, because we like to improve things throughout the year and as well as a team. So we were like, okay, how do we get better? And we knew with Lapierre, I already got in touch with Nicolas Bouilloz in the past a few times, but always, you know, like things never clicked. And we approached Nico again at this point, and he was super keen to actually have a woman elite joining the team. So you are like, maybe we can actually do something really cool if we merge like your knowledge with ours. Their knowledge obviously was on bike settings and all of the details that go into preparing a bike, tuning suspension. They are the absolutely best you could find on this point. And we were completely lost on it. Like I was not doing any testing, anything at that point. So for me, that was super interesting. And on the other end, they were super keen for us to join, as we could bring everything we have learned on content creation and the media aspect of running a team. So it was really a merge in between our 2 teams. And that's where it was very powerful, because I think it's always valuable when you bring knowledge out of the 2 parties. And for me, it was unreal how much I could learn with Nicolas and Adrien Dailly. They really taught me so much on bike testing. How do I improve my suspension? Like every single settings you have on a bike, they are testing it. And that's very impressive, because when you come from a place where I was not like taking my bike and go out, but almost on sometimes, they are able to feel a 1 millimeter difference on some setting. Like it's insane, the feeling they have on a bike. And it kind of took me years to be able to know what I feel and know what the reason behind, because at first I would come back and say, okay, I feel this, and this, and then my mechanic had to translate everything I was saying into something that was making sense. And it took me years, and I'm so grateful I was able to see this part of the racing process as well with them.
Yeah, I watched some video footage actually of you racing EWS over the years, and more latterly, the bike setup on that Lapierre, it looks like it's working so well underneath you. And you're a very small, light rider, and I think bikes generally, certainly in the past, haven't been particularly well designed, both in kind of size, geometry, and in suspension setup to work well for lighter riders. Are there certain things that you've done personally that have helped, and have you found bikes and suspension have improved for lighter riders over the period that you've been involved?
So the first thing is that throughout the year, I noticed that not all of the bike brands have extra small or very tiny bikes. So for example, Sun back then had to make myself a smaller bike than the one they were selling, because it was not existing back then. Lapierre had to do a smaller bike. That was for Chloé Gaëlan, that was on the team before me, and she is the same size as me. So I was lucky for this one. Someone small already came through Lapierre. But for the new Spicy, again, they had to downsize a little bit and create an extra small, which was not especially the plan first because I'm too tiny. But I think right now it's super interesting for the mountain biking industry because you see some teenagers that are my size, that are super keen to shred and that needs bike to do it. So I think right now there is truly a place for the extra small bike, but it was not the case a few years back. And also what I felt like was super interesting from an industry perspective was to work on suspension for light riders and women, because in general we are a bit smaller, let's say. So that was truly very interesting to work with RockShox on trying to find the best settings for me as a light rider. It's not like we both learned throughout the process, and that was super cool. But I think today we truly have the opportunity to find bikes that can fit smaller people and teenagers or even kids, and that are super performant. Like if you look at my new Spicy, it's insane how well this bike works for a small and light person. And I think it's cool because now when I'm going out and ride, I see some kids or teenagers that are already at quite a level racing on the national or even international level. And there is truly a place for those bikes now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think stiffness as well can be an issue for the lighter, smaller riders. And I've seen quite a few of the lighter end riders maybe not using like a Zeb, for example, and stepping back down to a Lyric. But you actually have gone the other way in recent years. I think you used to race the Lyric and you've more recently raced the Zeb. How do you feel about this kind of the stiffness of bikes and components for someone at your size?
So I guess as a light rider, you are going to feel it even more when the bike is stiff. And for example, when we worked on the new Lapierre bikes, I got to test 2 layups of carbon, and the first one was too rigid for me, and I could truly felt like I was like that was too much for light riders. And when the second version came, it was unreal how good the bike was feeling for me, and that's the bike I'm racing with now. The commercial version is this layup, and that's when you realize the importance of giving time to testing and to different riders, not only regular medium size, but also on the beginning of the range for the smallest one. And that was truly interesting to feel the difference. And with the suspension, what I found is truly that the setting for me is more important, and the feeling is more important than if it's rigid or not. And with the Zeb, I felt like I was able to truly go into fine tuning to like really have something that matches my weight. And for me, the difference, because a lot of people ask me this question actually, why I'm on it and not on the Lyric. And that's truly because when I'm going full gas on the stage, I want something that is going to take every single thing I give it. So that was the main difference for me. I'm having a Lyric on my trail bike that I ride here for fun or to train. But when it comes to racing, I truly felt much more comfortable on the bigger, stiffer fork, but with the perfect setting for me.
Yeah, and have you been using Flight Attendant as well the last season or so? How have you got on with that?
Yeah, so I've been racing throughout the season with it. And for me, it was funny because when you get on it, you can feel it's working well. You can feel like it brings a lot of positive stuff to your riding. But you truly realize how good is it the day you forgot, for example, to put the battery on, and you just go around the parking lot and you're like, oh, what's going on today? And you're like, oh, I just forgot to, to put it on. And I think for me that's really relevant, or how you get used to it, and it's almost like when you don't have it, you feel something is missing on the bike. And especially as a light rider, on an enduro bike, enduro bike are always a bit heavy, and when you are 50 kilos, sometimes it's quite a struggle, especially to go uphill with it. And I truly felt that with the Flight Attendant, the fact that you get a stiffer bike to go up, it's such a difference. And I really think for racing, it's key. I don't know for a more general use, like because if you are not, wanting to, and like I don't know, because even if I'm going out for fun, like I'm always super happy when it's locking my suspension. I think it saves so much energy that I can actually push, or do more. So I'll say it for both. But truly for racing, when you have stage, like in Finale Ligure, when it's going to be like uphill or pedal for a minute and a half, that's truly key and makes such a huge difference.
Interesting stuff. I want to pick up a little bit on your 2022 season when you had your first go at an e-ews. And firstly, I guess I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the enduro or e-enduro racing discipline and the decision that it's not going to happen in 2025. I just wonder how you feel about that.
So I cannot really say for the racing part because I only raced in Valberg and obviously I did not finish that one. That's another story. But aside of it, I did not really race it, so I cannot get the feeling personally of what it is and what I think about it. But in my team, we had the two disciplines, so e-edr and EDR. And from what I could hear from Kevin Marie and Adrien Dailly and Antoine Roche that were racing it, is that it's difficult to have both the EDR and EDR on the same weekend, because then they are going to race some of the stage we do and that are not made for EDR racing. And sometimes it's a bit of a struggle when they end up racing in a bike park and are above the motors, and it's a kind of a weird feeling for them. But from what I heard, they were happy with the implements and, they worked hard to kind of differentiate both disciplines. So I was quite surprised when they said they were stepping back next season. But I guess if they do so, is to really find a place where e-bike race, like enduro e-bike racing, belongs, and to truly have a format that makes sense and not something really similar to enduro, but we are racing it with an e-bike. I think e-bikes truly have its place if we find the format of racing that works. Because when you see, for example, their power stage, it's insane. It looks like a trial zone. They are going up some difficult features, like crazy stuff. And I think that's cool because it's then completely different from what we do. And I think for me, the key is there. How do you make a format that is truly specific to e-bikes, that works well, that people want to see, want to race? And I guess in the future, that's probably going to happen. It's such a big part of the industry now. I think that brands will come together and put a format on. But it's quite weird to hear that, and I feel so sorry for all of the riders that truly went into e-bike racing, devoted so much effort and time to specify to the discipline, and all of a sudden it's not there next year. So I guess there will still be, I'm sure there will still be some exciting races, but I feel a bit like it was difficult things to learn for all of the e-bike racers at the end of the season. So the feeling was hard. You felt like we've been working so much to it, and all of a sudden it's on pause, and we don't know yet what it will be.
Yeah, challenging time for sure, and hopefully there's some positivity that comes out the end of it. But yeah, like you say, your first e-bike race didn't quite go to plan, with a very strange accident that I've never seen before. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Because it must have been a pretty wild experience.
So yeah, it was my first and last experience on the e-bike for the moment. But I always said I wanted to do another one, just not to finish my e-bike career on it. So I will be back racing e-bikes because I'd like to do and see by myself how the sport is, what's the format and everything. So I'll be back. And for Valberg, it was basically one of the e-bike World Cups that was outside of EDR, so I was able to race. And it's such a nice place. We used to do the Enduro World Series there. It's insane how cool the riding is there. So I was like, yeah, I'm super keen. Let's go and do this. And I was actually having the best weekend ever because I could race with no pressure, just, like having fun. And I think it was not the last stage of the race, but the one before. And I just was riding, like smooth, everything control. And I went a bit outside on a corner. And I don't know how, but I think my front wheel pushed down a branch, lifted it up, and I impaled myself on it. It went through my foot, in and out, and got stuck thanks to the clip. So it was quite weird, very painful. And it took a lot of time to be like for the helicopter to come and for the rescue because I was in a place where I was stuck in the forest. So thanks to Marie, which was the first person down to help me, we had to go out 200 meters, like almost like rainbow style to be able to get the helicopter to come. So I actually had to sew the branch on side because it was too big and I was not fitting, like into the bucket for the helicopter to lift me. So yeah, I got stuck with my unicorn foot for 5 years. 5 hours. You can see, it felt like 5 years in my head before they removed it. But I was actually super lucky because it got stuck in between my bones, in between my tendons. And basically it was just super painful because I had it was below my foot, the skin there is quite, so that was super painful. But 1 month later, I was in Canada racing the next Enduro World Series in Whistler. It was not perfect, but it was good enough to race. And that was also, I was going to say a super cool experience. That was not a super cool experience, but I brought a lot of learning and I worked a lot with my mental coach to how to deal with the pain on those races because I was still playing the overall in the Enduro World Series and I did not want this injury to, to be hit, to put a stop on this season, especially after coming back from 2021, which was the toughest one for me ever. So I really wanted 2022, to be smooth. So we worked a lot on managing the pain and everything. And it was such a positive learning. And I know I will keep this for the rest of my life to be able to switch off the pain when you need it.
Yeah, interesting. Can you talk through any strategies that you found that work for that? Because there a lot of pain is mental, right? Your body's sending signals to the brain saying look after this. It still needs to be kind of, you need to go a bit gentle with it. And there are, I guess, ways to try and turn off some of that pain because it is a mental thing, I think, or a lot of it.
For me, it was is it a pain that is trying to bring out the signal that something's wrong and you need to take care of it? Because this pain needs to be listened to because she's telling you something is wrong, you actually need some help, you need to do something. But at this point, when it was 1 month, both of my scars were almost completely sealed. So it was a pain that was just due to what happened, but everything was kind of normal and okay. It was just, the nerves growing back and stuff like that, which is happening, which is normal, but it's not a pain that was important to listen to because everything was done. I had all of the green lights from the doctors, from surgery, everything. They all told me, it will be painful, but it'll be fine. So from that point, it's just to always convince myself that it's okay. It's painful, but it's okay. It's not something that I need to listen to. And from a racing perspective, what I've done for Whistler was truly to get into a warrior mode where nothing is going to stop me from what I want to do, and what I want to do is to cross this finish line. And so throughout the day, it was truly like a battle to every single time I was feeling something to kind of bring the mental back into another direction. And the pain I was feeling was a bit like if my foot was on fire and it was leaking.
Lovely.
So I was trying to have this image of my foot, like water in my shoes, very warm water. But, it's fine. Like, it's okay to have a foot like that. Like, it's just, like go with the flow. It's totally fine. It's totally normal. And I was just trying to every single time focus on the stage after stage. And what's funny is that I put this mental strategy in Whistler and I got fourth of the day. And the week after, we were racing in Burke in Vermont. And I thought, like, yeah, you raced Whistler, everything was fine, you're fine, like, you're completely done with the injury. And I come and pro stage, I race, and I was like completely in shock because the pain was still spiking and I got 14th. And that's simply because I approached this race like if I was back to normal and I was not ready yet. And I did not put the same strategy back into place to, fight the pain. So I really had some work to do to put it back on those two races.
And you talked earlier about reconnecting with your passion for riding by digging deep. Does that mean that a result like that in Whistler and going into warrior mode and battling through that makes that race kind of almost more fun for you in a way?
I like the struggle. So I definitely like when I truly need to fight for a race, and sometimes the result can be like really not great, but I can be super proud and happy with my racing because of it. And every single time I'm asked what is the season I'm the most proud of, and it's actually not the one I won. It's 2021 when I got third in the overall after the most difficult season I ever had mentally and physically because I was not able to train. I was completely weak. And that's for me the result that was truly magic. Like the emotion I felt on that day, I never felt it like on that year. That were truly important and connected to my passion. And I think truly for me the key is to fight, to get better, to be a good person, and it goes so much outside of a result and a performance only that yes, I have some races I'm super happy, super proud that are truly not my best.
That's really good. That's great that you're getting pleasure out of results that other people would look at and be, Isa's not going to be very happy with that. So yeah, it's cool that you managed to find that space. And I guess big news earlier this season, you announced that you were going to take a break from racing at the end of the year. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, I've always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to have a family. And for me, I really wanted to devote time to it and not, try to be pregnant throughout the season, having the pressure to race until I am and stuff like that. And I wanted to do things my way. And for me to do things my way is to say, this is my priority right now. It's not racing anymore. And I will step back from racing as long as it takes. And after, I will see if I'm coming back or not, but I'm fixing my own priorities. And I know it's not been done a lot in the mountain biking industry, and we've not seen a lot of women stepping back to have a break. Speaking especially about the gravity side, not the cross-country one. And because gravity, for me, I think it's a bit different. And yeah, so that's my plan for the next few years. And it's funny because as soon as I said this, everyone was coming to me and saying, oh, it's so cool, you retire. And I was like, I never said that. I never said I'm going to retire. I'm saying I'm putting everything on hold, I'm having a break, and then I will see. And for me, it's a bit like, why would I close the door of racing now? Because maybe I won't like be done when maybe I would want to come back a day, and so we'll see. I'm letting the opportunity open right now, and in a few years maybe I would tell you like how I should have closed this door straight away and like announce I'm done, and never like even thought about coming back. But why not? Like mountain biking is such a big thing in my life, and racing as well. So I don't see why I would say I'm done now, because I don't know. Like I have no clue about that. So we'll just go with the flow and see. And I have so many super cool and exciting projects along this, because it's the same. Like you are a woman, a female athlete, and you announce you want to have a break. It's like everyone is thinking I'm gonna sit and wait and do nothing, like, of course I'm going to ride a bike, have some projects, work, like do many different things. And that's kind of funny because it shows that, sometimes as a woman athlete, it's not yet there to be able to have a pro career, to have a baby break, to come back, to do whatever actually like you can do outside in a normal world. Let's say if you have a job, obviously you are going to have a break from it, but you're going to come back, it's normal. And no one questions this. But as soon as it's into the sports industry, it's getting so many questions out of it. And I always answer saying that if physically, mentally, I am able and I want to, why would I not come back and race more as well if it's possible on the logistic side? I'm truly aware that I won't be back and race full season. But why not like set up 3 main goals a year and come back and do them?
Yeah, you're
so
right.
I guess we'll see.
Not much prior art in the sport for sure, and it's good to have people setting the trend, I guess, and doing it their way. So good on you for that. But I mean, you made the decision, I think, before the start of the season. Did that put a pressure on this season for you? Did it change the way you approached it?
So I actually made the decision and the plan 2 years before that. So
okay.
Yeah, I am lucky enough to have a very committed support from Lapierre. And I signed for 5 years. It's a super long contract with them, cool. Letting them know that I wanted to race for this period of time, then put things on hold and switch to kind of an ambassador role with them and to develop some other stuff. And I'm very, very lucky I have this support, and it meant a lot for me. So I knew even way before the start of the season that this was my plan. But the question was, and we were thinking a lot about that with Cedric, which is my manager and my boyfriend in life, that should I announce it or not? Because, like I could have go through the season and not say it. But when you know it deep inside, you are sure 100% this is my last season as a full-time professional racer. And I know next season I'm not racing. That's absolutely sure. Like, why not say it? And I've always been very open, and like I speak about everything when I'm asked the question. And I felt like for me, I was relieved when I said it, because otherwise, like, people could have told me, oh yeah, and what's your plan for next season? And you're like, what should I answer to that? And no, now, like, I felt relieved because everyone knew, and I could speak openly about my plans for 2025, what I'm going to do outside of racing and everything. And it's also brings the opportunity to truly enjoy the season, like the last season of full-time racing, when you only have to focus on yourself. And that was for me the best way to do it.
Yeah, and you got yourself into a great place. You were leading, I think, the overall coming into the last round in Ludenville, and I guess it would have been really nice to sign off with the overall from the year. But it wasn't a huge lead. Like, Hattie was pushing, and it was a tight battle for sure. And Ludenville didn't make life easy for anyone. The weather, I was there, and it was absolutely horrific, to be fair. I didn't envy any of you out racing and riding that day. How did that event go? Because it didn't quite come together in the very last part of it, did it?
I think for me, the World Cup season this year was a bit tricky because beginning of the season, I was super keen, super motivated, fully into it. I got some good results and I was happy with the beginning of the season. But as soon as we heard that finally it was truly going to happen, the first World Championship with the rainbow jersey, part of me was having a struggle to keep, focusing on the World Cups only. And I felt that's where I was not putting enough into racing World Cups. And right now the level is so high, it's so dense that if you're not giving 100%, you're not going to win it. You're not going to win the overall. And I know Harriet was super into it, super focused, and she's such a strong rider, especially every single time we have a physical race. She's always here and pushing. So I knew my margin was, getting smaller race after race, and I knew the last opportunity to make it happen was Loudanvielle. But the week after, we also had the World Championship, and that's where it was, again, in my head, it was a bit difficult to really give Loudanvielle as much intensity as I was going to do for the World Championship. So I felt it was a bit of a mental struggle, and especially as this fourth title, I never kind of dreamed about it. It was much more like it's there. I'm having the opportunity to go for a fourth one, so I'll be stupid not to try. But in the same time, it was not like my absolutely dream to have it. My dream was to have this rainbow jersey. So that was a bit tricky. And I've been working for 2 years now to reach this goal of the rainbow jersey. So when in Leogang, at the beginning of the race, I say yeah, it's happening. It's this day. I feel that that's where the World Cup season kind of changed for me. And especially with such a strong field, you cannot do well if you're not fully into it. And in Loudanvielle, I was still in reach for it. And I've been a very lucky rider throughout the past 10 years. And on one stage, I lost so much time with mechanicals, and I felt this is just luck, and sometimes you have to pay the bill for being so lucky throughout the years. So I actually lost maybe 1 minute and a half, 2 minutes on that one. It was a complete nightmare. It was so muddy. I was trying to push my bike and I was slipping. I was crashing, pushing the bike, and felt completely ridiculous. And it was tough. Really tough to to swallow this one. But at the same time, I was you know what, you're doing everything in Loudanvielle, and then in Canada you'll be fine. So it was okay for me because I knew I had one more race to go and not to finish on this one. Because if that was it, that was my final day of racing, and you finish like that on a 9th place after being so consistent and almost top, 7 on each race for the past 4 years, 5 years. That would have been a bit difficult to swallow. But again, it's racing, and there is a part of racing you cannot control. But I was super happy and relieved we had one more big goals to go before I'm really closing the chapter of professional full-time racing.
Yeah, it was a pretty amazing end to this chapter of your life for sure. So yeah, 1 week after Loudanvielle, you headed over to the first ever Enduro World Champs, which obviously was a big focus for you. But the 2024 season wasn't making life easy for anyone, and obviously we had snow for World Champs. Just talk us a little bit through the week itself, because yeah, it can't have been a straightforward one in racing in those conditions.
So for me, it actually started 3 years ago. As soon as we heard there will be one day one rainbow jersey for Enduro, I was completely devoting all of my trainings to this, because I knew at one point it will come. And I was just afraid it will come after I stopped racing, and this would have been really, really tough for me to miss this opportunity. So when they announced it, I knew I only had one chance to do it and one race, because obviously even if I come back to racing, in a few years, I will never be as fit as I am right now on this season. So when we came there and it started pouring snow at the beginning of the week, I was like, no, there is no way. I was completely panicking and I was super afraid they will cancel the race. And I was like, this cannot be this way. Like, this can't happen. Like, you cannot like train for 2 years, like really waiting for this. And finally it's there and it's pouring snow. So I really had to convince myself through the week that it will happen, it'll be fine, everything will be okay. And I knew the organizers were doing everything they could to maintain the race. They brought 100 person to clean and sweep the trails, remove the snow before practice. So they've done such a great job. And with the conditions, the race was, because I lowered some of the starts of the stage, because it was obviously impossible to race in 40 centimeters of snow. But the race in these conditions was still such a proper race. And I actually wonder how we could have done the entire stuff if it was in the wet, because with the ground being a bit more sticky and slippery, it was so physical and tough. And I think it was truly still the perfect race for everyone. We have more than 20 minutes of timing on stage, which is what we have most of the time. So it was a proper one.
Yeah, and it must have felt like very, very special to finally be there and have your opportunity after all these years of waiting, sort of knowing it was coming, but for it to be your last race in this part of your riding career as well. Did you feel a pressure on the day, or were you able to just get out there and enjoy it?
So it was truly difficult to manage the pressure, especially as in Loudanvielle, I kind of, lost a bit confidence into my riding, even though I had some good stage results there. But I felt like, maybe I'm not able. And that's when, it starts to get in your head and you start questioning everything. Did I have done enough? Am I well prepared? Is my bike having the right settings? Why should I eat? What should I wear? What should I do before the race? And I'm a bit like that. Like, I tend to question myself because it's always with an idea of progression, but sometimes it gets a bit too much. And I had to do some work with my mental coach to truly focus on, this is everything you've done throughout the past 10 years, and this is going to lead you not to the result you want, but to put on the plan and the perfect race you've always wanted to have. And when I realized that I truly wanted to have the perfect race, much more than the perfect result, it kind of took the pressure a little bit away, not completely, because you cannot race a world championship when you have only one chance without pressure. But I stick to the plan, and I really like things to be written to, like, step after step. So I wrote everything, like, this is what I'm going to do on track walking day. This is what I'm going to do on practice day. This is everything I'm going to do step after step. And like all of the rituals you can have on a race day, like I put everything. My plan was super clear. I put on a strategy on how I wanted to approach the stages. And I knew the first two ones were kind of suiting me much more than the other one because they were super technical and not too physical. So I truly focused on racing those one as fast as I could, making up like some time that would be easily, like spare throughout the day. So I basically put everything into place, all of the strategy, and the feeling was unreal. And I think even if I did not win on that day, the feeling of being able to create your perfect race step after step was unmatched. And that's for me the biggest accomplishment, was to use all of this experience of the past 10 years to make it a perfect day.
And also, luckily, to come with that perfect day, the perfect result. How did it feel to stand on the podium with your fellow riders and country folk and pull on the stripes and put that gold medal around your neck? There's a lot of build-up gone into this, eh?
Yeah. And especially in Enduro, as we always had the Enduro World Series titles and we had the World Cup title. But I truly felt, like I grew up in a cross-country world. So for me, the rainbow jersey meant like you belong. You belong in the sport. You belong, as a champion. Like, I don't like this word, but, like you've really made it. And I always felt something was missing when I was winning the Enduro World Series title and the World Cup title. I always felt like, yeah, I won, but like this is not it. And for me, this always came down to the jersey. And I mean, it's a childhood dream to have it. And at the end of the day, when like I was able to make it with Morgan and Melanie on the podium by my side, that was truly like I could not dream of a better way. And it's funny because throughout the day with Melanie and Morgan, we felt a bit like we were back at the Trophy of Nation racing together with the same jersey for the same team, like Team France. And we were kind of, like pushing each other throughout the day. And I think it explained also why we had such a great outcome at the World Championship, the three of us, and not the three of us alone, because like France did a very great job in every single category on both e-edr and e-edr. And yeah, for me, it was unmatched, the feeling of doing it with them, like they are with me on the finish line and we are just so happy for each other. And it was a very good way. Like I could not dream of a better way to close this first part of my racing career. And I'm super happy I raced long enough to see the rainbow jersey and actually have it. It's always a bit difficult when you actually get the jersey, and I'm not racing next season, so I know it's a shame and I feel a bit bad not to be able to go out with it next season. So, but it is what it is. Like I was not going to say, finally I'm coming back for one more year just because I have the jersey, and changing completely the plan. So that's the only thing that I feel a bit bad is not to be able to race with it next season.
Well, at least you always get to wear the stripes on your kit throughout the rest of your career somewhere. So that's a positive. Has it changed anything for you? I know people say, certainly from the downhill World Cup, like it can open doors for you. It can create pressures, can change things for an athlete. Does it change anything for you? How's your experience so far of being world champion?
For me, it truly changed the way I realized my career was not only my career, but it was a family, it was a friend things. Because when I brought back this jersey, my best friends were crying, like in tears. Like I truly felt for my mom, it was, like kind of a reward, and it kind of personifies all of the efforts, all of the sacrifice you made throughout the year. And we had a big party at home, and I truly realized how much people were there for me throughout the year and were actually understanding what I was doing and why I was never here, or why I was missing always like big moments. And it truly felt like, wow, this is big. Like I did not realize how important it was for them too, because like when you are focusing on only training and getting better every single day for 2 years, like it's a very alone process outside of my super let's say close family. And at this point I was like, wow, I did not realize this was so important actually for you too. And I truly felt like that was a collective feeling. And at the same way, I was super happy to bring it back for them because they've been supporting me throughout the years. They were actually also super happy for me to see all of those years of hard work being, having a reward. So that was such a cool feeling. And for me, that's what has changed the most, is to have another perspective on what mountain biking again means in my life for not only me, but my family, my friends, my sponsors, every single one I worked with over the past 10 years.
Amazing. That's an awesome reflection on an incredible career up to now. And like you say, it doesn't end here. Hopefully there's the family that you're looking for and hoping to have. but also I guess you've got some projects in the mountain bike world. You said Lapierre, a strong partnership there. Is there anything you can talk about? Are there any sort of plans that you can share at this point?
Yeah, of course. So what I truly like also about mountain biking is to share my passion and to help more people get on the bike and have fun and, get better. So for me, the main goal was to find a way to give back to mountain biking what it has brought to my life. And that's what I do with some associations. But I wanted to do it on a bigger scale. So one way to do it for me is to share my knowledge, share all of the difficulties I faced and everything that I put, time in but did not work. Some stuff I found out that are working better if you want to get better on this and this particular aspect of riding a bike. So the main idea will be to put on a YouTube channel and a platform where I can help people to get better on a bike. And that goes with the very big picture, which will be both mechanic, training. I'm also doing a degree to be a physical coach, and every technical aspect to it, and also the racing part, because obviously I can share a few tips, and I'm just super excited about it. And then I will do some days of coaching with kids and women, especially because I love to see them, starting to ride and getting better. So the main idea will be really to finally be able to give more. I always felt a bit disappointed. I did not have enough time, to do some stuff on social media, to help people, to give some tips. So this is finally the time, and I'm going to devote my winter to it. So this is one of the main goals for next season. Another one is to keep on supporting the team. So I'll be there with the team, helping them as I can, especially the riders that will need me, to go a step higher into their career. So that's also a big part of it. And yeah, for me, truly, if I had to define what's my next move, is to be there for people, to help them get better on a bike and get stocked. That's it. I just want, to spread this and support this journey.
Good work. Where are people going to be looking for the YouTube stuff? Will it be on your own channel? Will it be on the Lapierre channel?
So this is again something I'm going to work on this winter, but it will be on my channel. I don't have one yet. It will all come out. I hopefully will launch this before the EDR season. So next year season is starting in May. So May, April or date we have in mind right now. But again, we want to do things very well in a professional way. We want people to really have the content they want, and to really propose something that is super cool, and we want people to be happy with it. So it's a lot of work, and I'm just super keen to get to learn some new things. I'm a very beginner at it right now, and the same way I like to go back to school every single winter, learn a new stuff. This winter I'm going to try my best to learn this.
Sounds awesome. We should start wrapping up with our final 4 questions. The first of those: if our listeners had £150, which is about €180, to improve their performance on a bike, what would you recommend they go and spend it on?
How many euros you said?
180.
180. I think for a lot of people that will be actually to invest in a one-to-one skills day session, like 2-hour skill session probably is the price of it, because sometimes it's only one single tips that can truly change everything for someone. And I've seen this by coaching people just like on one downhill, and you can spot one little detail that the person is not having correctly right yet, such as braking or on the position, and it can truly impact all of the riding and all of the experience as well. So for me, I would say this is the best way to invest, to get better on the bike and have much more fun.
Great answer. Love it. All right, second one. If you could wind back the clock and sit down with yourself age 16, what advice would you give her?
I would say to not give up, because at 16 I was probably in the period where I wanted to give up and let everything down. But there was this tiny voice into me that was telling me to keep pushing. So I would be there and say, keep pushing.
Love it. Nice one. All right. Third one. If you could have a coaching session from anybody, past or present, who would it be, and what would you want to learn from them? And you've, like you say, you've worked alongside Nico Vulio, you've ridden with Anne Caro, you've had some incredible people, but is there anyone missing from that list?
So I've been lucky enough to have already the opportunity to work with Nicolas Vios and Anne-Caroline Chausson would have been my first answers. So outside of these two, I would truly love to have a coaching session with Rachel Atherton.
Ah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, because
Go
I
on.
truly feel on the speed side, there is some, like advice stuff to learn, especially from someone that I learned, that I won 40 World Cups. It's insane. And there is also a lot of consistency behind this. And you don't get this consistent if you don't have, like some kind of magic advice to give to people.
True, and also somebody who's been able to step away from racing, become a mother, and then come back and win a World Cup, which is incredible. Yeah, for sure. All right, last one. Is there something that you do every day that you feel benefits you?
I would say is to step back when I feel like I'm taking stuff too seriously, to always, kind of go into the process of thinking why I'm doing this. And it is okay. And, to bring, I would say, some joy and smile into what I do. And that's for me what truly helps me to be happy on the long term.
Lovely. I love that. It's a nice place to finish. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your story. And I'm so glad that it has come to a point where you can walk away happy with a world champ medal around your neck and get stuck into this second phase of what mountain biking is for you. Looking forward to seeing how that evolves with the YouTube channel, and also no doubt that at some point we'll see you back between the tape with a big smile on your face. But yeah, thanks. If people want to follow you over the coming years, where's the best place for them to be looking at the moment?
The best place right now is Instagram, and it's easy to find me. It's just my Isabeau, my first name, and the letter C, and you will find me.
Okay, perfect. We'll stick links to that in the show notes, and
thank you very much.
Let us know when the YouTube channel goes live and we can share that as well. But yeah, thanks, Isa. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much.